Howdy, hey folks. So I get a lot of questions when I'm working with writing teams or companies around what does high quality work actually look like? Your clients or your teammates or your leadership is asking you, make this really good, make it high quality. It's got to be the best. It's got to be amazing. But that's a really tricky area to work in because it's what does that even mean? How do you get there? How do you assess what quality looks like? So, today's video, I want to go into more of what I see from what quality is, the levels you can expect within your organization, and then some things that I do and recommend to folks to better assess their quality of work and then how they can improve it. Quality is two things at the same time. It is a subjective experience. It is something that differs from person to person. You might love a particular TV show that your partner or your friend hates. Quality is something that is really innate. It's subjective. It's squinchy and it's sometimes hard to define. That said, in the business world and in professional settings, we can build a consensus around what constitutes high quality work. What does high quality work look like in the workplace? Something that we're going to go into today of how do we set that benchmark so that everyone knows we're playing on the same field. So when we're talking about writing quality, I tend to break it down into 5 levels based on what I see within organizations, agencies, writing teams. So these encompass, and we'll get into each of these here in particular here in a second, but these levels, I think, break apart where those big jumps and leaps are in improving quality, the things that get people to go, oh, this is better than what I saw before. And those levels are, I start with level 0 of technical incompetence, which is just really bad writing. It's really just terrible stuff, all the way up to level 4, that master, where maybe you're not winning a Pulitzer Prize, but you're getting nominated for things like the Content Marketing Institute Awards. That's the really standout stuff that people really take a shine to and pay attention to. And then we've got levels here throughout, and we'll go through all of these here in just a second. So I start with one that I don't see a whole lot of, mainly because I tend to screen these folks out when I work with them. But this is what I call level 0, or technical incompetence. It's obvious when you see this kind of copy that whoever was writing it doesn't really understand the mechanics of writing, what quality even is to begin with. There's probably nothing around any kind of quality control measure to do any kind of checking. You tend not to see, ideally, a whole lot of this, especially in the professional world. Mainly when I start working with folks, we've gotten them at least to the first level before we really start doing anything. We'll get to the ones here that you're probably a little bit more familiar with. So things like what I call my level 1 here, the minimum benchmark. So this is meeting like the bare minimum client expectations. So they've tried writing something, it's pretty much legible, maybe the grammar is sloppy, maybe a couple of things are spelled wrong still, even with Grammarly or something else checking it. But at least there's like an attempt. They've tried to bring in, hey, here's some information from a client, or here's some research I went and found on Google really quickly, or Wikipedia. And this is where I think the AI stuff's starting to really poke some folks is if you've been at level 1 for a while, or that's the kind of quality you're getting, where it's there to fill a space, you've got something. That's where stuff like ChatGPT, Writer AI, Copy AI, that's where those generative AI tools are really starting to make their mark, because it's just better at writing this kind of basic stuff than internal teams are, and they can do it faster. So if you're at this level, which is a fair number of folks, just because we're not really necessarily asked to write all the time, both in our professional lives and personal lives. So if you don't have as much experience with the written word, if you haven't had the chance to go and do this, being at level 1 is not really out of the ballpark. But as you start building and getting experience and learning this stuff, we move you into that second level, which I call apprentice. So have established better mechanics. The copy is pretty clean. You're not finding a whole lot of errors anymore, at least stuff that can be cleaned out. But this is where things start to feel what I call assembly line writing. So you've gotten the mechanics down, you understand the tactical side of it, you're missing more of the strategic element to it. Like you're missing the piece that makes this writing different than everything else out there. So if you've ever been working with an account team or you're working with a writer and everything just sounds the same, it's just there's no real voice to it. There's nothing different. There's no different research. Everything just feels like it came off an assembly line. This is where we are. That's that second level where we've moved up a little bit beyond that minimum piece, but this is not the kind of stuff that's going to really interest clients. And if you're trying to sell content, this is going to be really hard to sell. Maybe if you have a bunch of basic, informational level, hey, crank this out kind of thing, this is probably a good space for it. But if you're trying to do something more thought leadership related, if you're trying to build a brand and build a narrative that's different from everyone else, level two just isn't going to get you. You're just not going to get there yet. With coaching and practice and more experience, writers can then develop that deeper competency with the mechanics and narrative abilities. So this is where, if you talk about storytelling, this is where storytelling really starts to emerge. And this is my level three. This is the adept, which is someone who has gotten through that assembly line. They've learned more about the nuances of a client voice. They've learned how to capture more of that. They're doing better, deeper research. They understand more around argumentation and narrative building, so being able to tell a story from beginning to end. Copy at this point, you're not doing a whole lot of line edits anymore. If you're making adjustments, it's more around style. It's this voice needs to sound a little bit more like me, or I'd use this word instead of that word. It's more of the nitpicky stuff, as opposed to, hey, we got to go back and redo these whole sections. And these pieces at level three tend to start capturing more of those unique elements that come from clients. So you're not feeling that same assembly line, cut and paste, lack of differentiation anymore. Now it's starting to feel more like, okay, this feels more like client XYZ. I can put this in front of them and feel more confident that the client's going to be happier with this. And really over time and experience, as you start writing millions of words, as you start working with high quality coaches, as you start really developing your profile and your portfolio, you reach this mastery level, which is the fourth level here I have. And this is where you're really capturing all those nuances of great storytelling. So if you think about the favorite articles you've ever read, if you think about your favorite books, TV shows, movies, things like that, they're probably capturing a lot of this, right? If you're reading something, it reads gracefully, it's interesting, you've got a really unique hook in the introduction, it's fun to read, there's clearly a voice, there's something here to talk about. You're getting a unique opinion, ideas, data-backed research. This is the kind of compelling content that clients dream. This is amazing, this is incredible. This is the award-winning stuff that writers put in their portfolios. This is the big stuff. Where I think a lot of organizations struggle and where they make a lot of mistakes. I'm going to discount again level 0, even really level 1. I think if you're not doing minimum benchmark stuff right now, that's probably worth the conversation elsewhere. So let's just, for the sake of this video, assume that you've gotten everyone at least at assembly line level. Like they're producing content, clients are paying you or want to pay you for it, but you're starting to struggle with, okay, how do we get that next level of quality? And I think a lot of organizations come into this conversation wanting to be masters. They want, this next great American novel. So they really start pushing those folks who are writing at that 3 level to try to get to that 4. And there's a lot of value in investing in people like that. You do want to do that. But where I think the challenge lies is it really becomes asymptotic at this point. So you've been building and building and building. You learn really fast to get through 0 to 1 to 2. 2 to 3 takes a bit more time, but 3 to 4 is a lot of energy required to make that move happen. You really have to put a lot of time, a lot of focus, a lot of work into it. It just doesn't happen overnight. And really, depending on the client you're working with, do they need that level of experience? Is that really what they're asking for? Can you capture more of it at that 3 level? So really, you should be looking at those folks who are writing at that benchmark, who are kind of doing it, but are really stuck in that assembly line mindset, and start pushing them more into that 3 space, that adept space, where they're doing a bit of storytelling. There's some information in there. It's clear, it's different, but it might fulfill the need that clients have. So when agencies are doing this work, really the first question you have to be asking is, what is your client defining quality as? And does that align with what your expectation is? This question actually gets skipped a lot in the onboarding process. Everyone rushes to try to get to something. We're trying to get to work. We're on a timeline, on a really tight schedule, and nobody really takes the time to assess what are the clients actually asking for from quality. And when that mismatch happens, that's where you get clients who get mad about the situation, or they say it doesn't sound like me, or it's not meeting that quality expectation. Well, if you have a client coming in who expects that level 4 out of 4, then you know you need to either find the best writer you've got, or maybe hire out because you probably don't have the ability in house to do that. But if that client's more at like that level 2 or 3, where it's, hey, we just need something that's good, that's at least a little differentiated, has enough of an interesting introduction, but we just got to get it going. Maybe you can meet that a little bit better. So agencies that are working with clients who have internal teams that are more at that kind of 1 to 2 stage, you can come in at that next stage up and position yourself as the better alternative to what your client's doing in house right now. So you can position that step, or even just past it, maybe 2.5 even. But if you're incorporating enough of those pieces, that might be more than enough to appeal to that quality mindset that your client has. This is where that quality is a subjective experience piece comes back into the conversation. It's different, but you have to have that conversation and lead it with your clients, and then be able to assess what they're giving you, and continually refine that process for yourself, that you're delivering at least a half step, if not a full step, ahead of where your clients are internally. Spots I analyze when I go to start thinking about, okay, where are they in this quality spectrum? Look at the quality and the sourcing of their primary and secondary research. Are they really going out and finding interesting stuff? Are they finding well-researched, vetted articles from the recent past? Or are they going on and finding what Wikipedia tells them? Are they finding the top 5 answers in a Google search, and that's enough? That's really indicative, I think, of missing some good information to make good, high-quality content from, is lacking a breadth and depth of information to pull from. How are they interviewing their folks internally? Are they involving their subject matter experts? It's not uncommon that SMEs just sit out the conversation, or maybe fire off an email with some thoughts, but really more in-depth conversations with the people who know the details of what you want to talk about, especially if you're in B2B writing, this is really important. Gathering information from the people in the room who know this information best, and are they asking really good questions to gather that information. I'd also look into how common the folks internally to these clients are adhering to the mechanics and conventions of writing. Are they capturing brand voice? Do they have a style guide and brand guide? How does that tone sound? Does it sound really kind of corporate neutral, bland? Do they have a fun voice? Is there grammar, spelling mistakes? Are they really capturing those mechanics and tactics of writing? Are they missing some pieces there? And then really understanding the development process. How does content move throughout an organization? How are they reviewing stuff? Are the right folks looking at it? Do they have someone who's a competent editor in there? Or are they missing that stage for someone to really interrogate content and ask those questions? So altogether, these kinds of information can help paint that picture of where these folks fall on that content spectrum, where you can position yourself as an agency. So when I start working with folks, especially on quality suggestions I often make, I have a few things I usually rely on and ask folks to do, especially early on if we're working on maybe leveling up a writer or an organization from like a 2 to a 3. How do we get out of the assembly line mindset and start moving toward differentiation? So reading exercises to test comprehension and idea synthesis. So that's another piece I throw in there to kind of give folks the opportunity to show that they understand the mechanics of writing, or maybe see what gaps exist. So give them a couple really high quality Fortune magazine articles or something more trade pub related. See if they can pull out the information. Can they do a reverse outline? Can they show me their research? Really use that as an opportunity to understand the level that we're working with. If you have a bigger team, a bigger organization you're working with, then I'll lean into editorial practices like some trading grades, so give people the chance to see what others are doing and others are producing to help both level set organizationally where we are, and then show folks individually some of those areas they can go and learn and grow from. Plus, start building more long-term internal development opportunities. I have a lot of resources on hand. I'm a writer, go figure. books, blogs, newsletters. I've got a bunch of stuff I'll toss toward folks to learn from and practice. And then for me, I got some templates and guides break out. So like, how do you ask that second question in the subject matter expert interview? How do you ask the so what and the why questions? How do you conduct that more thorough research? How do you dig into information? Outlining, I'm a big fan of outlining, so if you're not outlining, do it. But then we talk more about how do we actually outline and what that process looks like, and how we incorporate better thinking into our outlines to produce better high quality writing. So it's a longer video today, but quality is a really interesting concept. It's subjective, it's difficult to define, but I think working within the context of these levels can help you better assess where your organization, your agency, your writing staff live in that content spectrum. And if you're trying to find some goals to shoot for and ways to improve your team, looking at what that next level is can give you some aspirations to shoot for and some ideas to work with. As always, I'm happy to answer questions around what this looks like within your organization, but start with a couple of these things, start breaking down and analyzing the information in front of you, and then start taking those steps to move your people to being at least that half step, if not that full step, ahead of the organizations you're working with. So thanks for watching, gang. Always appreciate the chance to talk with you.